Hey, I am here with my good friend Grayson. He was a past client of the Secret Habit Recovery Program, and he graduated back in March after working together for 5 months. Grayson, it's so good to have you here, man.
Oh, it's good to be here. I
Yeah, it
appreciate the
is.
opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Grayson, you and I met back in the summer. We were messaging through a like minded community, and you basically asked if I would be open to coaching and going deeper into areas of your story. So, there was some erectile dysfunction you were talking about. There was a story of just some shame, just not understanding your sexual story in general. And I just loved your humility in looking for coaching. You are an amazing student and somebody who does what he says he will do. So I'm looking forward to asking you a few questions and offering other people hope from a story of someone who is so much further along than just 6 months ago. It's amazing how the healing process went with you. So, Grayson, first question I always love to ask, and if you can elaborate on this in any way you want, what was going on when you and I started talking? Like, what was kind of the frustration, some of the pain points being pushed that led you to seeking help in coaching? Tell me a bit about what was going on before we started working together.
Okay. Well, I was experiencing ED, and I had seen you in a podcast where you talked about it, and that got me thinking. Uh, and it was awesome to get acquainted with you, and then to start communicating with you. I recognized that my difficulties were not just with ED, but from childhood sex abuse that I experienced when I was about 4.5 years old. And then again, when I experienced sexual assault in a gym class in seventh grade, and I didn't have a father that was present with me. And so I did not know how to grow up to manhood. I learned about sexuality through a medical journal, a family medical book, discovered masturbation in my teen years, early teen years, and struggled with that. When I got married, I was curious about sex, and so I got a little bit addicted to sex articles in health magazines, and that was frustrating. I was afraid of touch. Yeah, I was just scared to death of touch. And
Yeah.
I was grateful that I was able to be intimate with my wife, but my intimacy didn't feel satisfying.
Mm.
And then 12 years ago, in 2009, 13 years ago, I had quadruple bypass surgery. And after that, it seemed like I depended on pills to be able to get an erection. And basically thought that was all it was going to be for the rest of my life. And through working with you, Shawn, I was able to recognize that, things could change and things could improve. And they have.
Wow. Wow.
And the 5 months that we worked one-on-one counseling was just a blessing in my life, unpacking
Hmm.
my stories and finding out why I was feeling the way I was, why I had so many hangups. And
Yeah.
it's just been a great journey, and I appreciate you very much.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing all that, Grayson. Yeah, you have a story that there was many areas that were not understood or even ever brought up. And you're much older than I am. So there was a long history that we went through. So when you came to me, I remember the conversation about erectile dysfunction when we were talking in that community. And then as we started talking further, I remember asking you if you would like to dive deeper into the sexual story. And it was just, that was the beginning. I remember you saying you had the bypass surgery and hadn't been able to go without pills for X amount of years. And when you started applying what you learned in the podcast, you started having some freedom to not take those pills. And there's just some really cool little things along the way. And then when we started diving deep, there was just this beautiful opening of healing. So one of the things I love to know from my clients, especially clients that have graduated, is they can look back over the time we spent together and just because healing is not easy, it's rewarding and it's worth every second and every penny and every effort and energy. But Grayson, what would you say was the most challenging thing for you about going through the coaching journey with me?
The most challenging thing was unpacking my history from when I was a little boy. I mean, I had never shared with anybody, not even my wife, until early in my marriage, how I was sexually abused as a child, 4.5 years old. And it was a friend of my father's that abused me. And we moved around a lot. I was born in Calgary, Canada, moved to New Zealand, grew up 6 years of my life in New Zealand. Then we immigrated to the USA. But I never had anybody that I was able to open up with. I never had my parents I could talk to. My father I could not trust because of his own issues. And it was awesome to come to realize why I behaved the way that I did and why my actions were what they were. And yeah, it was tough not being able to share. I mean, when I got married and we have 4 children, I have 12 grandchildren. My sons sometimes would love to come from behind and grab me, and I would just, as quickly as I could, get away from them. And I had never made the connection to the sexual abuse that I suffered in 7th grade, because a bigger boy had grabbed me from behind and pressed his body into mine and hollered out to all the other students, I'm stuck. And I was just mortified, embarrassed. But I'd never made the connection. That's why my sons couldn't touch me.
Wow. So the challenge of unpacking the story of pain and trauma, and it can be uncomfortable for us to see what led us to where we're at today. And you courageously did that. So it's amazing, Grayson. So that's the challenge. What would you say was your favorite part of the journey? What was really awesome for Grayson? Everyone has one thing that they just thought was just revolutionary, or just one of the methods or ideologies that they just loved about the process. What was that for you?
Well, intimacy between me and my wife has improved, skyrocketed. We're able to be intimate more frequently. I learned that when I was relying on the pills, it was as if I was searching for a quickness, and foreplay wasn't basically there. It was just quick arousal, get it done, and go from there. And so it has been awesome improving the intimacy with my wife. And it's also been awesome having safer relations with people on the outside, including my own children. I mean, I had so many hangups. I hesitated even holding a grandchild on my lap, and because I didn't want to inadvertently touch anyone inappropriately like I had been touched. And the freedom that has brought, unpacking those stories, and the comfort that I feel around people now, and just being able to make the connections and recognize that, God is there for me. He's always been there for me, but now more so than ever, recognizing that God created sex to be enjoyed, and my sexuality isn't as fearful as it was, way fearful as it was in the past.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome, man. So yeah, a lot of the things we talked about in the program with self-awareness, building out that foundation of what does God actually say? What is actually true? And some of those other things like building intimacy, we're not just talking about quitting porn. We're talking about growing in our manhood as sexual beings, having a sexual integrity. So that's what I hear you saying, which is really awesome. And you alluded to a few things, and this is something that I just would love to hear. And the people listening, I know they need to hear this, Grayson, but you had some what we called quirks as we worked through the program. That was the word that was used so often. And there has been so much healing in some of those areas. Would you mind sharing a few of those? Like what was the kind of that quirk, that hang up, and what is happening now? Because there's some beautiful things happening, especially in the intimacy with your family members.
Yeah. Well, one of the quirks that I had was I always had to keep a pillow on my lap, because if I held a grandchild, I didn't want any closeness with me. I was afraid that I might be inappropriate with them, and I didn't want them to inappropriately touch me. And now I can sit without a pillow on my lap. Because of the abuse that I suffered in the locker room in seventh grade, I was always afraid to be in a locker room and to ever be caught with my pants down. And now I can be in a locker room and stand in my underwear, and I'm not embarrassed, and I'm not quick to hurry up and get out of there. It's just so freeing. Getting rid of those silly little quirks that were so much a part of my life.
Wow.
I mean, fearful of touch. If I was on a subway train and people pressed against me, I just about went ballistic. My wife noticed that from time to time when we were on a subway train together. And she would say, "You're all right, you're all right." But now I'm not... as I'm not suffering from those quirks anymore.
Wow.
And it just is so freeing to be able to experience touch and not be so sexualized mentally on account of it.
Yeah, so good, Grayson. And I know there's more, but we don't need to share them all. Some of them are probably personal to you, but it's so wonderful to hear the healing so that you can experience touch. Like God made us as intimate beings. He made us longing for connection, which is the opposite of addiction. So to hear this story of your healing journey, that it's so much more than just quitting porn or just quitting masturbation or something. It's this holistic sexual healing and redemption that is now blessing your marriage and your family, your legacy. So that is amazing. Last question, because this is something that often happens where someone might be watching this testimony, someone might be reading our newsletters or on our social media, and they're struggling with their sexuality, with pornography, masturbation, sex addiction, betrayal trauma, whatever it is. And they just feel like, well, that's good for Grayson. That's really nice for Shawn, but like, I'm stuck. I'm hopeless. There's no way that I could ever get to that place. What would you tell someone like that, Grayson, as you've been through the journey?
Oh, you can succeed at this. When you partner with God, the impossible becomes possible. And through prayer, I've always appreciated the prayers that we have shared together as you have conducted counseling sessions with me. Doing the homework is absolutely crucial. Worksheets that you assigned me, no matter how hard they were, it felt so good to complete them and to recognize feelings, being able to name things, name the feelings that I was experiencing and recognize the trigger behind the feelings. That has been so helpful. As I said a moment ago, partnering with God and with good, effective counseling, which, Shawn, you are a great counselor, a great coach. I have been blessed. And anybody who applies what you are teaching and what you are training and what you are helping with. I mean, just thinking of sports, if you never listen to your coach, the game doesn't go well at all. And
that's right.
Absolutely. And so I have really been blessed. And I know with good coach, with God on your side, miracles happen
Mm.
and freedom can be found. We don't have to stay the way we were. And that's the greatest joy for me, because I'm feeling good about myself, inside myself, and outside myself. Just all around. You used the term holistic healing, and that's what I have been experiencing.
Wow.
And yeah.
So it's available. It's available to everybody. Yeah, amazing, Grayson. Thank you. And what I hear you saying is that it's available because God loves us. He has offered us the opportunity to partner with him, which is a privilege and a joy. But also what you're saying is that there are good quality coaches out there who have a guided roadmap, who have expertise that can help. And just because someone's gone through a program or something at their church and it didn't work doesn't mean that you're hopeless. It means that maybe that program has old approaches or it didn't click with you, but that doesn't mean that you aren't worthy of sexual integrity and freedom from pornography. So Grayson, thank you so much for sharing so openly and courageously. I feel impacted by hearing your story again after a couple months of being away from the program. And you're just a legend in the private community of Secret Habit, being so encouraging and such a blessing to these other men. So thank you for your story, for your courage, and for your trust in God. It's such a privilege to have this time to share another graduate of the Secret Habit Recovery Program. So blessings to you, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. God bless, Grayson. See you later, man.
All right. Bye now.